All right, so today is actually Star Wars Day, so happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Okay. All right, so we are moving on to Unit 7. So in Unit 7, we will be talking about fractions. Does anyone want to share what you might know about fractions and why they are important? Why is it important that we are learning about fractions, or anything that you know about fractions that you would like to share? Go ahead, Tilly.
You can use fractions in cooking.
Very
So
good.
I started learning fractions when I started cooking with my mom. Sometimes I get confused with them, teaspoons, tablespoons.
Good. Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Anything that you would like to share about what you know about fractions? I see Ronan. Go ahead, Ronan.
You can use 1/3 of milk to make like cake or something.
Very good. Yes. For baking, cooking. Good job. So before we get started, we're going to talk about some vocabulary words for fractions. So on my board here, hope everybody can see that, we'll be talking about unit fractions. So a unit fraction always has the number 1 in the numerator. So looking at my fraction here, 1/3, my top number is called the numerator and the bottom number is called the denominator. So numerator on top, denominator on the bottom. So our denominator tells how many equal parts we have. So in 1/3, right, I'm going to have 3 equal parts. So if I have my, I'll do a bar here. Okay, so my fraction bar is split into 3 equal parts. And if I have one of them shaded, right, that's 1 out of 3 parts. Is everybody good with that? Okay, so our numerator, the top number, it tells how many equal parts of that fraction that we have. So in this case, right, if I have one of my parts shaded, I have 1/3. Okay, so numerator on top, that tells me how many pieces of that fraction that I have. Denominator on the bottom tells me how many equal parts I'm going to have. So unit fractions, we will use unit fractions to build other fractions. So let's go ahead and take a look at our class activity page today. So this page. And so it looks like number 1 is already done for us. And let me get situated here. Number 1 is already done for us. So it is saying write the unit fraction for each whole. Next, shade the correct number of parts. Then show each shaded fraction as a sum of unit fractions. So remember, a unit fraction is any fraction that has 1 in the numerator. Okay, and then let's talk about, sorry, before we get started, why is it important to make sure that our bar or our circle is broken into equal parts? Why is that important for fractions, that they're broken into equal parts? Good morning, Jack. I see that you're joining us today. So since Jack is joining us, we're talking about fractions today. And why is it important to, if I have a bar, to divide it equally into equal parts, not just random parts? So if I have a new fraction bar, are those equal parts? No. So why is it important that we have equal parts in a fraction bar? Danny, I think, are you raising your hand? Danny? No? Okay. Okay, so it's important that we have equal parts, right? Because if we're sharing with somebody, we want to make sure that right? We all have the same amount. Okay, so that's why it's important for our fraction bars to be broken into equal parts. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at our class activity page. So number 9, okay, they divided the parts into 5 equal parts, and it wants us to shade 2 parts. So if I have 2 parts that are shaded, if I have my fraction bar, and sorry, bear with me here. So how many pieces are we looking at? How many pieces is our fraction divided into? So looking at number 9, how many pieces is it divided into? Willow, go ahead, Willow.
5.
5. So each of these parts is 1/5. Each of those little squares is 1/5. So if we shade 2 of them, right, that's saying 1/5 plus 1/5 equals 2/5. So why did my numerator changed, but my denominator did not change? Why didn't I just say 2/10? Why did I say 2/5? Go ahead, Tilly.
Because you add the numerator and not the denominator, because the denominator always stays the same.
Good, right? Our denominator is staying the same because I only have 5 equal parts, right? I don't have 10 equal parts. So when we're adding our unit fractions, our numerators will change, but our denominators will stay the same. Okay, so let's take a look at number 10. So we have a fraction bar that's divided into 3 equal parts, and it says to shade 2 parts. So again, we have 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 2/3. So that was just another example that we provided. Any questions on that one? Number 10. Okay, let's move on to number 11. So we have a fraction bar that's divided into 7 equal parts. I'm looking for my eraser here. Don't have it. So we have a fraction bar that's divided into 7 equal parts. So bear with me here so I can get this drawn real quick. Okay, so each of these represents 1/7. 1/7. So underneath this part and on your paper, we're going to write 1/7 plus 1/7 plus 1/7. Okay, so each of those parts represents 1/7. Good. So then on your paper, where it has the arrow and then the next fraction bar, okay, so it says to shade 5 parts. So we'll go ahead and shade 5 of the parts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So then how many sevenths make 5/7? Tilly, go ahead.
5/7.
Right, so we're just taking 1/7 plus 1/7 plus 1/7.
9.
Okay. So when we add 1/7 5 times, we'll get 5/7. Any questions on how we found our answer? Okay, so we built 5/7 by counting or finding the sum of our unit fraction. Okay, any questions or can we move on? Okay, good. Let's go ahead. We'll take a look at number 12. And sorry, I had a. There it is. All right. All right, so looks like we're on number 12. So divide our fraction bar into 8 equal parts. Okay. All right, so each of these represents how many? What would our unit fraction be for each part? Danny, go ahead. I think you have to unmute yourself also. There you go.
8.
So 1/8. Good.
Yeah, 1.
1/8. Nice job. So each of these represents 1/8. So go ahead and again, we'll do 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 until we fill each one. Okay, so each one of those represents 1/8. So now it wants us to shade 7 of the parts. So once you have this part completed, go ahead and shade 7 of the parts. And then show me the sum of the unit fractions to make 7/8. Okay, any questions? Everybody get? Okay, so again, we are just adding our unit fractions to make that shaded fraction. So in this case, we added 7 of our unit fractions to make 7/8. Any questions? Okay. All right, number 13. We'll go ahead and move on to number 13. So I'm just going to get rid of 2 of these. So again, underneath, please show me the unit fractions. So each of these, if it's split into 6 equal parts, how much does just one represent? So Ronan, go ahead, tell us how many does that one, what would the unit fraction be for that fraction bar?
1/6.
Very good. So each of these is 1/6. So our numerator 1, 6 is our denominator. Good. Okay. Nice job. All right, and now we need to shade 3 parts. So go ahead and shade 3 parts, and then show me the sum of the unit fractions to make that shaded 3 parts. So if we have 1, 2, 3. So how many times will we add 1/6 to make 3/6? So how many times will we add 1/6 to make 3/6? Go ahead, Tilly.
3 times.
Very good. So we have 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6
Isn't 3/2 a
equals 3/6.
So why not turn into 1/2?
Okay. And yes, later we will talk about equivalent fractions. And 3/6 would also be equal to 1/2 because half of our bars are shaded. Okay, any questions? Okay, let's look at number 14. All right, so now our fraction bar is divided into 8 equal parts. So each part is worth how many? What would the fraction for each part be? Go ahead, Owen. What would the fraction be for each part?
1 over 8.
1. Good. So we'd say that as 1/8. Very good.
1/8.
Nice. 1/8. Okay. So we have 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8. Okay, good. So now we have to shade 8 parts. So go ahead and shade 8 parts and then show me your sum of your unit fractions. Okay. Okay, so what do we notice about this example? Tilly, what do you notice?
It is the whole thing.
It's the whole thing.
So
Okay.
it's 8 of
Yes, so it is, we would say that as 8/8. And anytime that the numerator, so the top number and the denominator are the same, that makes 1 whole. Okay, so we could look at this as 1 whole. Any questions on that? Good. Owen, is your hand up or you just, no? Good. Okay. So, so just like when we divide, right? If we have a number divided by a number, we get 1. So anytime I see the same number, the numerator and the denominator are the same, I could also write this as 1. Okay, the whole number 1. Okay, because we shaded all of its parts. Okay, and I want to back up a little bit. So a unit fraction, right? This is less than the number 1. Okay, it is 1/8. Okay, so all of these fractions that we are talking about are less than 1. And we'll talk more about that as we move on in this unit. So any questions on today's class activity page? Okay, so we were talking about unit fractions, and unit fractions always have a numerator or a top number of 1. Okay, so the numerator tells us how many pieces of the fraction that we have. Okay, so let's go ahead, if we don't have any more questions, let's go ahead and look at our math homework page, and I'll see if I can share that with you so you know what page I'm talking about. All right. Okay, so this is our homework page for today. It says the triangles in the shapes all have the same area. Count the equal parts in the whole. What unit fraction of the whole is shaded, is the shaded triangle? So here we have 3 equal parts, right? So 3 triangles. Of the triangles that are shaded, what would that unit fraction? So we have 3 equal parts. It looks like, sorry, this one is already done for us. We have 3 equal parts. What is the fraction for the shaded part, which would be 1/3? Any questions on that? Okay, so let's take a look at number 2. How many equal parts are there? How many equal parts? Ronan, go ahead. How many equal parts?
6.
6. So that first line, we're going to write 6. So there are 6 equal parts. Okay, in the whole shape.
Yeah, you did already. Your
So
turn.
the shaded part, what would that look like as a unit fraction? How many of the 6 parts are shaded? Go ahead, Tilly. What would our unit fraction look like?
1/6.
Perfect.
1/6.
Yep, nice job. So we would have 1/6 because only one of the 6 triangles is shaded. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out too. Any questions? So on the second line, we should have 1/6. Okay, because only one of the 6 parts is shaded. Any questions on how we got that answer? Okay, so you're first telling me how many equal parts are there, and then what would the unit fraction be? Okay, let's look at number 3. So how many equal parts are in the whole shape? So there are equal parts. Go ahead, Aubrey, how many equal parts?
4.
4, very good. So the first number that I'm doing goes on the first line. Okay, so there are 4 equal parts, very good. And what would our unit fraction be? So how many of the equal parts are shaded? Go ahead, Jack.
1/4.
Perfect. Okay, so then on the second line, we have 1/4. We would call it 1/4 because only one of the parts is shaded. Any questions on how we found those answers? Okay, So we are just counting the equal parts, determining the denominator, the bottom number, and then figuring out how many pieces are shaded. Okay, I'm going to clear this. Is everybody okay if I clear my answers here? Okay. All right, so now let's take a look at number 4. So this is what we just practiced all together on our whiteboard. So write a sum to represent the part of the fraction bar that you shaded. Then write it as one fraction. Okay, so number 4 is kind of already done for us. Okay, so each of those parts is 1/8 because they are divided into 8 equal parts. If 3 of the parts are shaded, that means we're going to add 1/8 plus 1/8 plus 1/8 equals 3/8. Any questions there? Okay, so now let's take a look at number 5. Number 5 looks to be divided into 5 equal parts. Okay, so underneath, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out this drawing tool here. So if my fraction bar is divided into 5 equal parts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, I might have to erase one of them. Ah, sorry. We'll get this figured out. All right, that's only 4. There's 5. Okay, so each of these is worth 1/5. So underneath that first bar that you see, it says divide into 5 equal parts, right? Each one would be 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5. Okay, so each of these smaller parts is worth 1/5. So that should go under the first part. Okay. Any questions on that? And then when you have, now we have to shade 4 parts. And sorry, I'm kind of doing this quick, so it's gonna look messy. Okay, so now we're going to shade 4 of the parts. So if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and shade 4 parts. Okay, so now we have to show the sum of our unit fractions. So we'd have 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5. Sorry, bear with me. Plus 1/5. And we would get a total of, Tilly, I see you raising your hand.
Oh, I said hi.
Go ahead.
Miss Schultz, I have to leave. I have violin.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for coming in today.
Bye.
Bye, Tilly.
Bye.
See you later.
I don't know how to exit though.
Let's see.
That's the problem. My mother's gone.
Oh, no.
Here, I think I can stop your video.
Did you do it?
No.
No?
Still there?
Oh, bye. She's gone,
Bye.
I think.
Yeah. I'm still
Okay.
gonna have
Willow, go ahead. What'd you find for our answer here?
4/5.
Perfect. 4/5. Good job. I think she's still there. Oh well. Okay, 4/5. Very good. Okay, any questions on how Willow found her answer? Okay, I want you to try to do number 6 on your own. And I will check that when your parents send it to me. So just use the examples if you need help. Jack, question?
Taylor, just if you put are you on? Never mind. Actually, I
Okay, thanks, Jack. Okay, so I want you to do number 6 on your own. So it's divided into 6 equal parts, and you need to shade 2 parts. So show me your sum of unit fractions. Any questions on that page? Okay, let's go ahead and look at the remembering page. So numbers 1 and 2, you need to draw a math mountain and write an equation to solve each problem. Make sure your answer has a label. So remember our math mountains, right? We have the add-ins on the bottom and our total or sum at the top, okay? So a math mountain for each, and then write an equation and solve the problem. Any questions? Okay, 3 through 5, read each sentence, write whether it is true or false. So true, right, you agree with it, or false, you do not agree with it. Okay, so all parallelograms are rectangles. All parallelograms are quadrilaterals. So sorry, just for 3 and 4, true or false. Number 5, draw a parallelogram with no right angles. So remember, parallelograms, they have opposite sides that are parallel, right? Our lines are parallel. They do not intersect. Any questions on that? Okay, and stretch your thinking. Remember, is a challenge. But it says Cameron eats 1/3 of his granola bar before school and another third of his granola bar for lunch. Draw and shade a fraction bar to show how much of the granola bar he has eaten. Okay, so think about our denominator. How many equal parts do we need? Okay, any questions? Okay, great job today. Thanks for joining me. I plan on doing 2 more videos this week, and hopefully they will be in the classroom so I have better access to stuff. But thank you for joining. I wanted to go over our lesson 26 pages this week, if you have those too. If not, it's okay. So the first page, we have just final endings. So we have the ending TION and URE. So just read the sentence and which word fits best in the blank. So in our word bank, we have action, future, attention, motion, confusion, nature, discussion, picture, furniture, protection. Okay, so you just need to read each sentence and decide which one goes best. Like I mentioned, we are done with our story, like the actual hard book. So you should have a magazine for our story this week. And you can read any of the pages 4 through 19, I believe it was. But our story is called The Foot Race Across America. That's the story for the week. And then everything else is just kind of additional reading stuff. So 160 is the page for our story. 162 words with the vowel, consonant, consonant, vowel pattern. So it has the list. So make sure like your answer for number 1 goes on line number 1. Any questions on that stuff today? I think we will, oh. Yes, Holly.
What magazine is it? We can't find it.
We don't have one.
We don't have a magazine.
Let me, I think it's, does anybody have theirs? Evan, I think Evan is holding his up.
Let's see it.
Evan, can you hold it up?
Closer to the camera, buddy.
Take off the purple background.
Do you
Reading
see
is-
that?
Oh, that is it.
Ah, we got it.
Okay, we have it. We found it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evan. Thank you. Okay, so I think I'll talk about the other pages tomorrow or Wednesday, but that's just to get a start on the reading and grammar this week. Spelling, I guess, and phonics. Any questions before we go? Okay. And I'm looking into a date for like an end of the year party. So be on the lookout for some dates to do that. And we'll try to have like a barbecue and maybe play kickball or something fun like that. Probably towards the end of May. But if we don't have any other questions or comments, I think I'll sign off here. I'll go ahead and unmute everybody.